I knew some things about Lincoln. I really admired him. I had read some things about him. And of course, I knew what a great man he was in a lot of ways. But when I was at the Museum of the Bible this summer, this book caught my eye, Lincoln's Battle with God by Stephen Mansfield. Because I didn't really understand that Lincoln had a battle with God. I guess maybe I'd heard things about, he struggled with his faith, and some biographers have claimed that he never really, came to faith fully, or confessed his Christianity, or whatever their claims are. So I picked it up thinking, it'll teach me a little bit more about Lincoln. But I've got to say, Stephen Mansfield does a very thorough, fair job. He's really trying to give the reader the whole scope of understanding about what Lincoln's path was spiritually. But he also blends in a lot of biography so that you get the whole gamut of Lincoln's life. You get to learn some details about his life. But then there's always kind of this special focus on where was he at in his belief in God, and how was that playing into decisions he was making or how life was going. And he's incredibly fair because he calls out all the worst nasty things that Lincoln ever said about God or believed about religion. And I felt like he was being incredibly fair. He's done a lot of research, read the most important biographies, original writings, all this kind of thing. So I'm going to give you just a few snippets from the book so that you can get a sense of what it's like, see if you want to pick it up. If you do, or if you've read it, I would love to hear your favorite takeaways, what you learned about Lincoln. It's a really special, unique way to look at him because, there's biographers who will claim that he never really had any belief in God, and there's plenty of information out there about things he said and did that could be the case. But then we also know a Lincoln during the Civil War and right at the end of it that's talking about God and quoting scripture a lot. And so what's really going on there? He says that when Lincoln was assassinated, and he was taken across the street, and actually we went to the theater and to the place where the house across the street this summer too, which was really fascinating. And his wife was with him, and she had claimed that some of the last words he spoke were these: "We will visit the Holy Land and see those places hallowed by the footsteps of the Savior, and then there is no place I so much desire to see as Jerusalem." And Mansfield goes on to say, there's some biographers who claim that this didn't happen, but he says that it has been substantiated by the most important sources that this is actually what Lincoln said. And he says Lincoln was, after all, a religious oddity. In fact, he went through periods of his life when he spoke openly anti-religion and even anti-God. But in his later years, he spoke often of God, but rarely of Jesus Christ, and that he was attending a place. So these are all the reasons that people would say he did believe in God or didn't believe in God. So he gives you this premise and starts it out by helping you understand that he's going to give you Lincoln's basic overview of his life while touching on interesting events and giving you kind of this spiritual history, which I really, really enjoyed. So he begins by talking about Lincoln's mother, her legacy, his childhood. He talks about how he was self-educated. He became his own university and mastered, he says, in achieving greatness by first mastering the art of self-education. So we know his mom inspired him to learn, and was really, although she was uneducated, was very, very smart. And then he goes on to talk about that he left home, but he waited until He could have left home earlier, but he waited until the family was established and everything was in good stead. Even though he had a really hard time with his father, they had a really bad relationship. And part of it was the religion that he was brought up in. So his mother died when he was young, and then his father remarried, and he really did love his stepmother. But they belonged to they were Baptists, and they belonged to a stricter sect of Baptists. They were called Separate Baptist. They were often called Hard Shell Baptists, both for their stubbornness and their unshakable devotion to the doctrine of predestination. For them, free will did not exist. And then the author goes into some of what the religious revivals were like and talked about how Lincoln would have seen that kind of stuff and been exposed to that kind of stuff. And he really, really hated it. It made him feel very uncomfortable, and compounded by the complex relationship that he had with his dad. It says, it is a testament to his character that as miserable as he was in his father's house, he did not leave his family immediately. And about this time, he had his famous flatboat journeys when he saw the misery of slavery for himself. A friend later said of Lincoln in New Orleans, slavery ran the iron rod into him then and there. And so he became passionate about how morally wrong slavery was and wanting to do something about that. He was a very, very, very ambitious man, and people that were close to him knew this about him. He also had major depression issues and was suicidal at least once, I think maybe twice in his life. But he says he burned with a desire to rise in the world. In later years, he told a friend, you know better than any man living that from boyhood up, my ambition was to be president. So he went into law. He got into, we all know the famous stories about how often he ran for office and how often he didn't make it into office. But then he slowly rose. And when he first kind of left home and went into the big city and went into the world, he got into a group of people who were, it says he was surrounded, this is 1834, he was surrounded by a class of people exceedingly liberal in matters of religion. And so he's always been passionate about self-education, but now he's really getting access to other people for discussions and debates. It's really exercising his mental faculties. It's really rewarding for him. And they read from things like Volney's Ruins and Thomas Paine's Age of Reason. These are, in fact, Paine boldly proclaimed a new creed to replace the old ones inspired by the myth of Christianity. I believe in one God and no more, and I hope for happiness beyond this life, the equality of man, etc. And so these were, deists at best. Some of them were atheists, and he was already incredibly uncomfortable with the religion he was raised on. And the author makes the argument that he never completely lost faith in some kind of divine power. And I think that might be partially because some of these men who he admired early on and attached himself to, like Thomas Paine, did maintain a belief in some kind of God. But, this is kind of, Paine said, my own mind is my own church. And so that's kind of where Lincoln landed. He was a man of strong character. He was, the stories about Honest Abe. There were times when he was deceitful. There were times when he didn't completely tell the truth. But he was a highly moral individual, or at least tried to be. He had his downfalls. He had his bad moments, whatever those things are. But in the end, he tried to do his best to be an upstanding member of society, did believe in a moral code, and did think certain things were right and certain things were wrong. And so the story goes, and eventually he is married and he has 4 sons, 2 of which die in childhood, and all of the sorrows attached to that. And it demonstrates how he rises in politics. And if you want a lot of details about some of that kind of stuff, there's sometimes, he'll give you dates and he'll give you events and sometimes some details, but you can see it's not a super thick book. It's actually quite easy to get through and a pretty quick read. And so slowly over time, some things happen. One of the most important things that happens is that, just before I go into that, he he shocked some of his friends by the way he would talk so openly against religion, and his friends would warn him, this is gonna, in a religious society, you're like not gonna get elected if you keep talking openly. But he, that's what he believed at the time. That's what he thought about things. In fact, at one point he wrote, some kind of essay or something. I can't remember all the details now about, what his beliefs were and why there wasn't, religion was terrible or whatever the case was. And he showed it to his friend, and his friend destroyed it so that he couldn't get it published, because he knew his friend knew he had ambitions politically. And if that was in his past, it could potentially destroy him. So that didn't get published. But the author makes this case, and he builds it pretty well, that Lincoln was clearly angry, inflamed, and unyielding. He had a fiery animosity against religion. So, I've talked other places, other times, about the poison that resentment is and how it is the major cause of addiction. And so definitely it sounds as if there was resentment towards his father, perhaps resentment toward God or religion. He went through a lot of very difficult things at a very young age. And so that may have fueled his painful feelings towards those things. But over time he softened. He had a really powerful experience when his father-in-law died, and there was a lot of anger. There were, I guess, lawsuits, and it was a really terrible time for the Todd family. And so they asked him to come in and really kind of moderate and try to handle things. He was level-headed. He seemed fair. He was an attorney. And so he did that, and he ended up spending some time at his father-in-law's house and reading some of his father-in-law's book, and happened upon one by Reverend James D. Smith. Reverend Smith had entered into a debate about the existence of God, or the rightness of, I can't remember exactly what the debate was about, if it was the existence of God or the rightness of the Christian faith or something like that. And he had done extensive research. He'd written to people in other countries to ask them to send him things that were like firsthand evidence of different things. And he had spent a couple years spending a ton of time researching for these debates. And this book was the fruit of what he came up with. And this man was scientifically minded like Lincoln. He was looking at other types of evidence than Lincoln had ever been presented with. And it was a really powerful book for him. He claimed his own copy. He wanted to meet the author. The author became a friend and a bit of a reverend to them over time. And, even in terms of the race issue, Smith argued that the differences between the races were only skin deep, that blacks and whites were essentially the same apart from the matter of color. And the author's insistence upon unrelenting examination of evidence was huge for Lincoln. And so that started him on a little bit different trajectory and looking for different types of evidences. He went through some sorrowful experiences, turned to pastors as he got older for help and aid through those difficult times. And then at one point he was with some friends. It says he was explaining to a friend how God guided him. And I thought I would just end with a couple really beautiful things that Lincoln said kind of later in life, and lead you to read this book yourself and glean from it what you will. Share it in the comments. If you're in the Audrey-Rindlisbacher library, go share your thoughts and ideas there, but very worth reading. So he was talking to a friend about how difficult it was to be president during the Civil War, and how many times he was up against, really, the kinds of decisions that affect so many lives that you and I may probably never have to make. And so they would weigh on him tremendously. And by this time he was active in his faith and turning to God often and nourishing that relationship. And it was a huge boon to him. And he says that frequently I see my way clear to a decision. And he says that he sees his way clear because God helps him. He says that in every instance where I have yielded to the views of others, I have had occasion to regret it. I am satisfied that when the Almighty wants me to do or not do a particular thing, he finds a way of letting me know it. And then he said, I am confident that it is his design to restore the union. He will do it in his own good time. We should obey and not oppose his will. And that's kind of reflected in the second inaugural address, which he gave in his, after he was voted in again the second time, not too long before his assassination. Said some really beautiful things, but he reflects this idea that God plans to restore the union, but that there's a price that has to be, he says, perhaps there's a price that has to be paid for this country engaging in slavery for so long. And he said, if God wills that it continue until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another draw with the sword. As was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. And, earlier in this speech, he'd said that everybody expected, they weren't even sure if war would break out, and then they thought it would end quicker, it would be easier. Each looked for an easier triumph and a result less fundamental and astounding. Both read the same Bible, and both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. It may seem strange, and this is where his perspective on slavery comes in. It may seem strange that any man should dare to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces. But let us judge not, that we be not judged. So he can't understand on any level how anyone would pray to God to continue an institution that was so clearly immoral. But it's not his place to judge, to condemn that person. The prayers of both could not be answered. That of neither has been fully answered. The Almighty has his own purposes. So this is the kind of speech he's giving at the end of his life. Even though when he was much younger, he was speaking out against, he even said some pretty sacrilegious, I think we could say sacrilegious things when he was younger. And then, of course, the beautiful words that end the second inaugural address. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. So that's so beautiful, so inspiring. Go read the Gettysburg Address again. Go read the second inaugural address for sure. They're both incredibly short. You can read them in a few minutes and they will just nourish your soul. Lincoln is bigger than life figure and incredibly fascinating, multifaceted, very complex individual. But it was a joy to get to know him better and to see him through the lens of his spiritual life. So I highly recommend Lincoln's Battle with God. If you want to go grab it, let me know what you thought of it, and I will see you next time. Hey, are you ready to have the truth set you free? Head over to audreyrindlisbacher.com and get the Truth Seeker Starter Kit for free, where I walk you through the 5 steps for discovering and applying true principles to your life so you can experience their liberating power. See you there.